All right, everyone. The other day there was an insane post by Being Liberal. They're one of the main Biden shit post pages basically on Facebook. Now, to be honest, I don't really use Facebook at this point, but occasionally, you scroll through for like 10 seconds before getting bored. But it was suggesting that billionaires should help their companies by using their billions of dollars to save them, like instead of getting a bailout. I chuckled about this because the lack of knowledge about economics. This is so stereotypically liberal. This is so stereotypically leftist to not understand the concept of what a billionaire actually is and why this idea would actually not work. Here, let me explain. When you say a person is a billionaire, when they have a net worth of, say, $1 billion, so they're right on the cusp, they're a freshly minted billionaire, the odds that they have all of that in paper currency or in a bank account able to be used at any given time is ludicrous. If the person's a billionaire and has a company, their assets within that company are part of that $1 billion. That might be more than half of their wealth and usually will be. The whole idea, there's a difference between the rich and the uber rich. The uber rich tend to have mostly passive income. Like Donald Trump is a great example. Donald Trump is a multi-billionaire. But on paper, as far as his actual bank accounts, I'd be really hesitant to say he has $1 billion in the bank. It's probably a few hundred million. Now, of course, it's nothing to shake a stick at. It was funny to watch Rachel Maddow pretend that he somehow was a failure at life for only making, what was it, $200-300 million over some fiscal year, 2011 or something? That's what billionaires do. He has billions in assets, which generate that as passive income. The idea is that you then take a proportion of that gross income and you put it into investing into more things to make even more money. Over time, properly managed, a brand like this can start generating billions a year, potentially. Money inflates over time. It's an empire. Trump's wealth, therefore, is mostly buildings, golf courses, assets. In order to take money and put them into his companies if they were failing, he would have to sell property. Now, let's say that all of the billionaire classes that are suffering from the lockdown did this. Because they would all be selling things off in order to pump their own businesses to pay employees and so forth, who would buy those liquidated assets? If everyone is already taking their available funds and putting it into their own businesses, like let's say that you have a simplified scenario. You have a country, there's some microstate that has 2 billionaires, mostly in the form of businesses. They own factories and stuff. One of them is a fishing magnate, the other one's a boating magnate. This is Tuvalu or something, and then you get 2 Tuvaluan billionaires. If they both sell off their property, who's going to buy that property from them to give them that actual physical money, that actual cash, which will be taxed, by the way, and be worth a lot less than that potential billion or whatever? Who is going to buy it? The other billionaire is doing the same thing. So they don't have the money. They're pumping it into their own businesses at the moment. They can't use it to buy that other property. What would happen is factories would be shuttered and nobody would be able to buy them. They would then be condemned or nationalized, or outside groups would come and buy them. The Chinese would come and buy them because they manipulate their currency. They can make it look like they have more or less wealth anytime they want. They've been doing this for 30 years. That's what would happen. A Chinese takeover. Mass unemployment. Yeah, you definitely need that extra money. And it would come from the government. Once again, taxpayers would have to bail the situation out. Only now, you've got real long-term unemployment and potentially for a long period of time, nobody rich enough to actually buy those properties at real value. So the value will go down. The amount of money, the amount of productivity will shrink. The total value of your economy will deflate. That's what would happen. So yeah, you can't ask the billionaires to bail out their own companies. Their billions aren't... The idea of like a Scrooge McDuck with a silo full of gold coins, that's funny, but it's not really how it works. If you're a billionaire, your overall income per year is probably not anywhere close to $1 billion. It's probably most, usually in the hundreds of millions. Trump's one of the richest people in the world. His overall yearly income adjusted, as far as the actual physical income, is a few $100 million. Now this is still monumental. He could still sell off a couple of apartments and probably have a real $1 billion. But why would he want to do that? By the way, all of his properties are already generating income. The government has shut them down. The government comes in and says, this factory can't produce. This apartment, people can't move around. These people can't go to their jobs. It is not the billionaires' fault that a bunch of people are out of work. Billionaires didn't engineer this crisis. This economic crisis is solely the responsibility of centralized governments, and you see in nations with a culture that's less respectful of centralization, like here, literally they've gone on a bureaucratizing spree lately. That's an actual facet of municipal government here in the Netherlands. They've tried to compact areas within the provinces more to eliminate bureaucratic positions. It's actually hilarious. They're de-leftizing on that token. There's a de-leftism, which by the way is very positive. Helps when the state has a tax rate as high as in here in the Netherlands. There's less tolerance for these sorts of things. And there's a correlation between the economic impact, it seems, of centrality, which is usually a negative thing, and these onerous lockdowns destroying everyone's careers. The unemployment rate of the world has spiked to a level we haven't seen probably since the Great Depression. We don't even necessarily have proper numbers at the moment. The damage is already incalculable. Billionaires can't bail you out because their money is already working. The billionaires have created jobs. The government comes along and says, no, you're not allowed to have a job right now. You have to go on unemployment. And then, by the way, when I see these dumbass leftists blaming people for taking the stimulus, when they've been put out of work artificially by the fucking government, oh, you endorse socialism, now what else are they supposed to do? Fucking starve? Government's the problem. Billionaires didn't cause the crisis. The central government of China caused the pandemic to become a pandemic in the first place with poor lab protocol, poor oversight, number one, because of inefficient, bloated bureaucracy and party cronyism over there in communist China. Number two, censorship, heavily centralized totalitarian control of the flow of information. That's why there's a goddamn pandemic. The lockdowns were caused by governments. The more centralized they are, the more things seem to be locked down. It's interesting because in the United States, you get a nice blanket patchwork. Some states say, fuck it. Some states say everything should close up. You can't even go to the park. You're violating ordinance number 5. We're going to drag you to the gulag. We won't arrest you if you're an arsonist or a burglar, but we will arrest you for going to the park because, orange man bad. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. And to suggest that billionaires can somehow magically solve the situation because of their magical fiat currency, sorry, they would have to liquidate large swaths of the whole economy in order to pump the remaining businesses with no hope that the rest of the businesses would be bought up at fair value. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't generate any jobs. It wouldn't generate any additional wealth. The idea that extra wealth is generated when you sell off the apartment building makes no sense at all. The total is the same. You've just converted the productive wealth, the physical wealth, into a pile of currency or a bunch of numbers in a bank somewhere. You haven't generated anything. That's not how money works. But if you're a leftist, of course, you probably don't have the intelligence to understand that now, do you? That's about all. Peace out.